Welcome to Biz Alchemy, a podcast about creating a new business paradigm by women, for women. I'm your alchemical host, Jacquelyn and I'm going to take you on an extraordinary adventure to create a business filled with ease, fun, spaciousness, and abundance. Hustle, be gone. Let's birth a new way. Today's podcast guest, Clare Kerslake, has been a part of my business journey for several years now. And since she only lives an hour up the highway from me, we've actually met in the flesh, which I don't know if I can say that for any of my previous podcast guests. So Clare's an EFT practitioner who helps women in business attract more money and more clients into their business by helping them shift any blocks or limiting beliefs that are getting in the way. In this chat, Clare shares the most common fears that she encounters in female entrepreneurs and how tapping helps shift these fears. She also shares how EFT has changed her life, especially around things like perfectionism and obsessively overworking. Clare's a part of both of my groups, Biz Alchemy Playground and also the Receiving Channel Patreon membership. And it is such a joy to have her gentle, wise energy in my tribes. So she shares some of this energy with you here. Clare, was there a turning point when you realised you had to move away from the patriarchal model of business and create a new paradigm for your business?
There wasn't a turning point as such. It was more a gradual evolution. And when I first started out in business, I was creating my business on the side of a full-time job. And back in the day, there really wasn't a beautiful, feminine, heart-centered model of business. It was very masculine, very feel the fear and do it anyway. And I think compounding that was the fact that I'd grown up very proud of my strong work ethic. And so I really didn't listen to my body at all. It was all in the head, all, push through and just do it. It was terrifying. Actually, I was terrified of everything. And it took a long time as I gradually got introduced to you. I met you and just became aware that there's another way and a better way. And it's still a work in progress. But when I look back, I've come so far. I can remember back then, and I was working full-time and growing my business and feeling very irritated that you actually had to sleep. It seemed like such a waste of energy, like waste of time to me. Why can't we be charged for 2 hours and then we go again? And I used to joke that I didn't even see the roses, yet alone stop to smell them. I can remember once being told that from a meditation teacher that a lot of people think their body is just to card their head around. And that was me. I was very much a human doing, not a human being. So it's just been a delight now to look at how far I've come and that I can design my life with spaciousness, that I'm listening to my body, my intuition's coming forward. It's just such a delight to see. And I know that, as I say, it's still a work in progress, but, I've come a long way.
Yes, and it sounds like it's very much a personal journey. That's actually the evolution that you've undergone, which is then reflected in your business.
Very much so. Yes, very much so. Now I love to have space, and I do still catch myself if something's come up and I think I'll just work a bit harder, or I'll just do perhaps I'll work on the weekend or something, and I'll catch myself, oh no, that's not the way we do things now. And very much I say I'm a recovering perfectionist, recovering control freak. It takes a lot of energy to grip onto things so tightly. So just to let go and allow those beautiful possibilities to come in has been a delight. You're very much personal journey as well as business one.
I hear that a lot from female entrepreneurs about the perfectionist, about that tendency. I mean, I see it in them energetically. Why is that, do you think? Like, what are the beliefs that they've carried that lead to that perfectionism?
Yeah, and I see this in a lot of my clients. Isn't it funny? We attract people that are often like ourselves. I think underlying it is perhaps a belief of not being enough, not being good enough. And so you strive to be harder. And I still have a passion for excellence. I think that's a good thing. But that's different to sort of wanting things to be perfect and just so. And, you know, it held me up for a long time because you don't take risks. Although looking back, you know, I was so scared of everything. I'm very proud of past Clare for, you know, wanting to step out because things were very different then in technology. Everything was different. And we have beautiful support now, like I know we've both worked together a lot. I love Biz Alchemy. It's such a gorgeous community and that support coming in. And it's learning to support myself and ask for support has been part of my journey too.
Yes. And I mean, for so many people who go into business, women, they've come out of the corporate environment. You've come out of the health environment. And I mean, I guess that is corporate as well, in a way, isn't it? In the bureaucratic way. It would be really interesting to know your story, Clare, of setting up your business and moving out of that career path. And it had been your career path your whole life.
Oh, absolutely. Such a strong part of my identity too. And it's so funny that didn't help because in nursing, it's changed now. And of course, with the pandemic, etc., it's changed again. But back then, unless you were dying, you're expected to front up to work. And in fact, there was this guilt that if you didn't, you'd be letting your colleagues down because, you know, often there wouldn't be someone to replace them. And as a nurse, even, you know, my recent years, you know, you had to deny even there might not be time to go to the loo. So you would hold on all day. You know, we joke about the nurse's 10-hour bladder, but, you know, you had to deny your body's, you know, urges or needs. And so that reflected in life and my business and nursing. And so there were many a night I would fall asleep, say at 1 a.m. at my computer. You know, I would have been far better off going to bed a few hours earlier and being rested. But no, do more, push through. And I didn't achieve anything, but it was part of that work hard sort of mentality. Yeah. So I had big dreams for something different, but with my identity too, that needed to change out of, you know, from the nursing to being in business and being a successful business owner. So there's been a lot of shifts that I joke that I didn't even start at zero. I started below zero because I had to change so much in my identity and my mindset, as well as the strategy. And what I love now is that back then when I started, really I couldn't find much mindset support at all. It just wasn't around. And it was all strategy. And now I just think, and I want to shout it from the rooftops really, that we have such beautiful mindset support and tools. And that's why I'm so passionate about the work that I do, because, you know, you can have the best strategy in the world, and that's really important. But if your mindset isn't right, if you're letting fears or limiting beliefs stop you, you know, you won't go anywhere, and that stops you from doing good in the world. And I get so excited about the ripple effect. And one of my biggest values is to make a difference in the world. And I see that I not only do I make a difference, but in working with my clients, they make a difference. So it just about gives me goosebumps at that change. And that mindset support is just so important with that. And what I love too is that when you clear, you know, what's getting in the way, those fears, those limiting beliefs, whether it's not being good enough or whatever it is, that allows that beautiful inner wisdom to come forth. And so, you know, we have, you know, our higher self or inner mentor or whatever you want to call it, our guides, very wise. But when we've got all this stuff in the way, we can't hear that. And so you're not pushing through the fear, but you're clearing that fear and allowing that beautiful aligned action to happen. And it really is a beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah, I can just feel your passion there for your work. And you know, Claire, just going back to what you were saying about the nursing, that's something I've never really thought about, is the fact that in that environment, you are fully overgiving, aren't you? You are, you know, and so no wonder people even coming from the healthcare sector that go into their own businesses end up
Yeah.
exhausted. And because again, you're following that pattern into your own, you're taking that into your own business.
Yeah.
So interesting. So share, we haven't talked much about your beautiful tool. We haven't talked at all about it yet. So do you want to share then your journey from discovering EFT, and maybe just talk a little bit about what it is for any of our listeners that haven't encountered EFT, and maybe how you created your business, why you created your business?
Well, initially with my business, I just had big dreams, and I thought, well, being in business is the way to do that. And so I first started out offering, diabetes education, weight loss online. And I was working as a diabetes educator at the time. And what I realized was that for many of my clients, they really struggled with things such as, emotional eating and cravings. And I struggled with that myself, actually. And it's a terrible thing, really, to feel so out of control around food. And I threw every strategy in the book with some of these clients. And for some clients, nothing worked. And then I became aware of something a bit weird called emotional freedom technique. And that's what EFT stands for. And it's can be referred to as psychological acupuncture, where you tap on, different acupressure points on your face and upper body, no needles. And it dissolves craving and, creates all these changes in the body. I thought, well, that's a bit weird. And I really discounted it initially. I thought, no, and especially coming from a health background, it's all about the evidence, and discounted it. And then time passed and I became aware that there is a strong evidence base for it, which is fantastic, and really good, solid, randomized controlled trials. And so just taking in the health space and the food space, the researchers would, properly, the trials were set up properly. They would ring these people. And when you're in the group of cravings, nothing else matters. You'd almost kill for that food. And so they'd ring these people up, say 6, 12 months later, and they'd say, how are you going? Oh, yeah, good. And so how are you going with the Kit Kats? And the person would say, what Kit Kats? I say, remember you having 10 Kit Kats a day? Oh, that's right. Oh, I don't do that anymore. So not only was there not a problem, they'd forgotten there was even a problem.
Wow.
And this has played out. There's been recent studies in pain, and some of the people with chronic pain, you can imagine what it's like to be in chronic pain all the time, had forgotten that it was ever an issue. And I see this in my work with women in business. And it's just like, I think of EFT as a tool and the work that I do a bit like a magic wand. And I used to joke, I wish I had a magic wand, and now I feel like I do have one, because the women that I work with will just naturally start to do something, that beautiful aligned action. They don't even think about it. Where before they might have been stuck and not moving around that issue because there was so much fear, or they'd be in avoidance or procrastinating. It's just done. It's just something that they do. It's such a beautiful thing to say. I was talking to a client the other day, and this demonstrates really beautifully what happens. And she was very much like I was, which very much work harder, do more, it's got to all be done yourself. And she just happened to mention in passing that, oh, yes, I'm working with so-and-so, and she's helping me with my podcast. And I thought for her that was such a beautiful big step in supporting herself and creating that beautiful spaciousness in her life. And that's just how it happens. This beautiful aligned action just happens.
I also love how for you, because when you started out and you had used EFT for your food cravings, and when you started out, I know when I first met you, that's who your audience was. But as you continue to evolve personally and evolve in your business, and recognizing actually now where I really need the support with the EFT is in business, and then your clientele has reflected that as well. It just illustrates so beautifully that it's like we take our clients on our own personal journey with us and share our wisdom as it's evolving. Is that how it feels for you?
Oh, very much so. Yes, yes. I love that aspect of it.
So what is the most common limiting belief that you see in your clients, in women in business?
One of the biggest ones is not being good enough, not feeling good enough. And that can, show itself in different ways. A lot around visibility. And that, of course, happens at every stage of business. Starting out, it might be taking selfies. And I can remember that was me. I can remember being in tears at the thought of posting selfies. And now I just love it. But of course, there's degrees of that. And as you grow your business, it might be, being reluctant to hit a bigger stage, like speaking on podcasts, etc. So yes, that shows itself in a number of ways. I work with a lot of women around pricing and, not feeling worthy to charge a certain amount, for your services and be able to receive money for what you do. And especially in the spiritual and holistic and healing spaces, there can be a belief, look, I shouldn't be charging for this. And another thing we sometimes think is, this comes easily to me, I shouldn't be charging for it. But we forget that what comes easy to us doesn't come easy to someone else. They're probably some of the most common.
And you talked to the belief, or you mentioned it before, about that you have to work hard to be successful, which you'd carried over with you as well. And of course, I encounter that a lot with my clients, and the new business paradigm that I talk about leaving that patriarchal model of business behind and creating this business of ease and flow. That limiting belief is huge in that.
Yes.
How are you on your journey for that? Because I noticed when I was looking at your website, you talked about how that's a journey you're on. And so obviously you're using your beautiful tool to help you in that. So where are you at it now in that journey?
Oh, it's really interesting, actually. It was a big thing for me just to have a day off.
Wow.
And 2 days off. So that was huge. And then, looking at shorter days, and I can go to the gym on these days, and just to be able to meet those health needs as well, have a bit more sleep. So it has been a journey, and it's probably still a bit of your work in progress. But also I've learned not to make myself wrong. I tend to be doing things, it's working on our land or whatever. But that lights me up too. And I think that will evolve, and I'm just holding it lightly and allowing that change to come in. And the beautiful thing is, as I've allowed space in my life, it does allow that magic to happen. Your intuition develops, your creativity develops, you look for joy. There's so many blessings that comes from that space that I never ever realized. So yes, it's quite a beautiful journey. And I'm just reminded of a really big turning point around that. Actually was the cover of a journal, and I don't have it to hand, unfortunately, but the author spoke about looking at the end goal, that life would start when this happened or when that happened. And there was this realization that, no, these moments are my life. And that was a big turning point for me, that this is my life. Is this how I want to spend it? And it's often a really great question to ask ourselves, is what we're doing how we want to spend our lives. So that was a really big turning point. And probably over the last 12 months, another huge one has been supporting myself more. I don't have to do it all myself. And a lovely question that I like to ask myself is, how can I support myself today? So it might be booking a session with yourself, for instance, or turning up to a beautiful Biz Alchemy call. It might be getting someone to help me with some tech issues. It might be sitting down and reading a book, but that beautiful question, okay, how can I get this support? And sometimes we realize that we actually had it, we're just not using it. So that's such a beautiful question to ask ourselves as well.
Yes. And if I can put another little slant on that, and this is exactly what you were saying in a way, are we receiving it?
Oh,
So the support may be there, but are we receiving it? And I think often we don't.
Oh, that's so true. And yeah, absolutely. Receiving that help, asking for help and receiving it. And being part of the receiving channel, that has been huge. It's such a beautiful space. And that's definitely part of my journey. I was very much, okay, it's all got to be done myself and very independent, prided myself on that. But now, okay, no, receiving these blessings, and it's just such a joy.
So I'm just thinking, oh, you're so fortunate having this amazing tool that you recognize a limiting belief and off you go. But I guess that's the thing, isn't it? We all have that tool. Like it's actually it is a tool that we can use ourselves. It's wonderful to be guided and have that experience. But isn't it great then we can go and do our homework and continue it away from the sessions as well?
Oh, that's one of the blessings of that. Yes. I mean, the advantage of working with a practitioner, you go deeper, and we tend to not do the homework. We tend to not, get to the to-do list rather than work on this. And recently I had a big bestie, something had come up in my life. She said, have you tapped on that? I said, no. It's so funny. But of course, it is such a beautiful tool that we can use ourselves on a day-to-day basis, which is fantastic.
So I've got an interesting question around that, and I've wondered this occasionally. Can you do it wrong?
Not really. Not really.
Because, everyone has different ways of doing it as well.
And I'm looking forward to the future because there is some lovely research around tapping. And it's mostly around the clinical EFT, which is what I do. But really, I don't think there is a wrong. I think possibly my biggest bugbear is that you see around the gurus doing it is they tend to go positive too soon. And that is probably what I see the most. And I talk a lot about, putting a number on the intent, rating the intensity with a number. And keeping tapping until that intensity is 1 or less. And we seem to start to feel better around a 5, and it's not enough. And so that's probably the biggest mistake. It's not wrong, but that's where people will say, look, I tried tapping, it didn't work. And I'll often say, that's one of the things I'll say, look, did you tap until that intensity was 1 or less? And the other thing is not being specific enough. Being really specific about how you feel in your body. Is anything coming up in your body, and being specific to you. They're probably the 2 biggest things I see, but it's not wrong. It's just perhaps it might not work as effectively.
And that's where working with a practitioner would be so important, because the practitioner would help guide you to tuning into that more than what you might do if you were just on your own, I imagine.
Oh, totally. And someone else will always see what you can't. And it's really clear to me. One of my zones of genius, I guess, is seeing, okay, that's where this issue is lying, and we'll work on that.
And so with these various issues that you see in female entrepreneurs about working hard to be successful, or the perfectionism, not being good enough, I guess I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. But is it, for some people, is it like one session and they're just like shifted, and others it might be they need 10? I'm guessing it just does vary depending on, I suppose, how looking at it from an energetic perspective, it's almost like how dense that story is sitting in their energy body.
That's exactly right. How long has this been going on? How, as you say, how dense it is in the energy body. So some people will just need 1 session, and that will be enough to get them further down the track. I work with some lovely ladies ongoing, and that's beautiful too, because as we grow our businesses, different things come up, or something will show itself in a different way. And that's probably my most favourite way of working, as part of their team, if you like, And that's why I feel with my packages, they need to be very flexible because everyone's different and we come at this from different angles. So yes, very much how long is a piece of string.
Yeah, beautiful. So how can listeners learn more about you and your work, Clare?
Well, I'm my main channel is probably Facebook, and I'm Clare. I think it's Clare M Kerslake on Facebook. I do have this amazing toolkit of tapping demo videos. That's, lifetime access, free opt-in. And I'm sure you'll have that link in the show notes. It's clarekerslake.com/toolkit. I love that because it's common tapping videos for things that often come up when you're a woman in business.
Fabulous.
I call it a toolkit because you can dip into it and out of it as things arise. Whatever your budget, there's something in there for you because it's all free. So that's wonderful. So I love promoting that. And of course, my website, clarekerslake.com.
Beautiful. Well, I'll put all those links in the show notes. And so do you have a takeaway message for our listeners?
I think a big one would be don't stay stuck. And this was big for me. I talked about my journey where there wasn't the mindset support. I was stuck for ages, like long time. I just stayed stuck in that fear. And you don't have to these days. There's so many beautiful practitioners around that you can work with. And the beautiful thing about clearing those fears and limiting beliefs is it does allow that inner wisdom to come forth, and then you can take that beautiful aligned action to grow your business and spread your message. So that would be my biggest takeaway.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today, Clare.
Thank you. It's been a joy chatting.
Thanks for listening to Biz Alchemy. I'm Jacquelyn Atkins. If you'd love to know more about the energy of business, join my newsletter list at jacquelynatkins.com and check out my receiving channel on Patreon at patreon.com/Jacquelyn Atkins. Until next time, enjoy creating alchemy in your biz.